What a week for Jamaica. Prime Minister Andrew Holness' name being called by the Anti-Corruption Agency for conflict of interest issues and suspicion of corruption investigation. Doubts being expressed about the integrity or purity of the motives of the very Commission for Monitoring Integrity. And in Denham Town, 2 boys charged for the kind of brutality that we heard some gangs in the west of the capital city used to use and visit on their own kind. And of course, in the Stocks and Securities Limited scandal that is still an open sore, Jean Panton was finally charged and is in custody after a court appearance. Good day. Thank you for joining me for the 59th episode of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Please continue to like and share the podcast with your friends and associates. And subscribe, please, if you haven't done so yet. I do appreciate it when you leave your comments on the channel. Now, to Frankly Speaking, the commentary. There are several points relating to time and timing raised in the issues with the report from the Integrity Commission that found conflict of interest with regard to the Prime Minister's handling of Christmas work, small contracts as Member of Parliament, long before he became Prime Minister. First, for me, frankly speaking, it's taking too long for the Commission to complete investigations, and they should tell us why this is so. This one started in 2016 on conduct or events from 10 years earlier. The report was completed last October. And even after all that time, since the investigation started, it was not tabled until mid-February. Why? Let me state, by the way, that the tabling of that report was necessary, regardless of whether, as happened, the Director of Corruption Prosecution did not have enough to go ahead, to do more, to go for a criminal prosecution. But it must be emphasized that the Director of Corruption Prevention has made that decision from as far back as January 12. The commissioners knew all of that, and in sending the report to the investigation forward to be tabled, must have been conscious that the allegations contained therein were of great moment and would have elicited the whole consternation, condemnation, and more that were expressed. They ought, therefore, to have taken such steps as necessary in making the report available, to have removed reasonable complaints about the process or allegations of malintent, mischief, or odious motive on their part. Frankly speaking, a simple procedure would have helped, even if, as the commissioners say, the 2 reports could not have been jointly tabled or simultaneously released. Once the report into the investigation was tabled, an alert and thoughtful commission could have notified the media, who would have made the information available to the public, that there was another report bearing on this investigation that would be released in, say, 2 hours. The storylines would have said there would be no prosecution, but the investigation had found A and B and C with regard to Mr. Holness's behavior. Why didn't the commission take that route? And frankly speaking, is there room for interpretation, as some attorneys are arguing, that the commissioners were not prevented by the Act from releasing the reports at the same time? Frankly speaking, I do not believe the commissioners had any odious motive, or as some are alleging, wanted to sully Mr. Holness's reputation and that of the office he holds. I know some of the people involved and have no reason to believe they are of less than impeccable integrity. The commissioners say, quote, "We reject the assertion that there has been any missteps in the process." Well, they can always say that. Yet, I believe they owe it to the country and to themselves to explain their decisions regarding what has turned out to be an unfortunate series of missteps on a very important investigation, an important step in conquering the corruption beast in Jamaica. The controversy over the Integrity Commission's handling of the report on Andrew Holness has obscured or removed from our gaze the very important issue of politicians' involvement in giving out work or recommending work or getting involved in any way with work in their constituencies generally or in their political divisions. It's an issue that needs to be discussed and taken seriously in Jamaica. One of the early reactions to the allegations last week that were born in the report was some MPs saying, oh, but all MPs do that. All MPs recommend. All MPs are called upon to recommend. All MPs get involved. They know the people. That was a common reaction. And they justify that also by saying, well, both sides do it. We've been doing it for a long time. And it's the Community Development Fund, and before that the SCSP, and before that others, and Christmas work, and so on. It must be said again. No matter how many do it, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it a best practice, and it lines the path to corrupt practices. We are going to have to discuss that issue. And soon. Here now is Desmond Richards.
The Integrity Commission is under fire. Severe criticism for its handling of investigations into allegation of corruption against the Prime Minister, and also the ruling of the Director of Corruption Prosecution that the charges against the Prime Minister were not strong enough to be taken to court. The crux of the criticism is that both reports, the Commission should have handed both reports, sent both reports to the Parliament at the same time. Based on the Integrity's response, it is clear that it was prohibited from doing so under the laws under which it operates. So, right now what should be done is that steps should be taken, I suggest, to look at the law and have them revised. But to label the level of the attacks, the criticisms on the Commission is unwarranted. What we are looking at are the crux of the criticism so far is that the Prime Minister has been embarrassed, the country has been embarrassed. Yes, of course, because the Prime Minister was involved in acts that the Commission felt it necessary to investigate. If he was not involved in acts of possible corruption, his name would not have been called. So therefore, we must stop heaping the blame on the Commission and look at the laws which the Prime Minister, the legislators, the MPs, the law that they form for the Commission to operate by. That is where we must look at. But you see, Jamaica, the laws in Jamaica is executed based on who you are. If it was an ordinary member of the society, we would not have at the level of holdings that we have. No, but because it's the Prime Minister. And yet we are told repeatedly that each man, every man is equal before the law. Then if that is the case, what if the Prime Minister, if the Prime Minister is investigated? The Prime Minister can only be investigated if he is involved in matters which require investigation. And therefore, I don't see this talk about embarrassment. It is because of the Prime Minister's action why he is embarrassed.
Journalist and founder of Rebel Radio Jamaica. And now, Winnie Anderson Brown.
If we're to create the peaceful and just society that we all want, we must face the truth. Many times when I hear talk about violence against women, the notion that men are the ones perpetrating violence against women and children is false. Violence is produced by both men, women, and children. So it is important for us to be against violence against anyone. And I know that my female counterparts are not so happy to hear that. Women are so violent sometimes that men can't even match them. And I don't know how many of us remember how many times we hear of women in fights and brawls, women against women, women against children, women against men. Crime, violence, not a man thing. It is a people thing. Violence is a people thing. And let us remember that. If we are to solve the problem of violence in this country, we better accept that violence is a people thing and we should be against violence of any sort.
That's Winnie Anderson Brown, educator and wellness facilitator. Thank you for liking and sharing the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast, episode 59. Please subscribe if you have not yet done so. On behalf of Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown, I am Franklin McKnight. Until then.